Something's been bugging me lately, and it reared its ugly little head in the comment section again recently. So I figure there's no better time to talk about it than right now. Now, don't worry, this isn't going to be a bashing session or anything like that, but this is something that you really ought to pay attention to in conversation out there if you don't want to look like an idiot. Gen X POV has partnered with 80stees.com as a way to grow and support the channel via affiliate links. By clicking a link in the description of this video or scanning the QR code on your screen, you will be taken to 80stees.com, where you can shop from hundreds of tees, all from your favorite retro movies, cartoons, TV shows, and more. You will be getting a quality product, many of which are officially licensed, that you will be proud to wear or gift to your favorite Gen Xer. So scan the QR code or click the link in the description below to help support the channel. All right, so the other day I'm scrolling through comments section and reading the comments because, yeah, I actually read them. And I came across something that I see all the time. And the person making this comment led with, "I feel like." And as a Gen Xer, that's something that almost immediately turns me off, right? Because I'm of the mindset where facts don't care about your feelings, right? Why not start off with, "I think that," instead of "I feel that"? And in true Gen X fashion, somebody else a little bit further down responded exactly the same way. Stop responding with "I feel that" and ground your argument in facts. It's going to make you sound way better than just arguing on a feeling or an emotion. Now, I get it. Emotions, feelings, they're strong, they're loud. They're kind of like the weather. They change at any given moment. So how you feel this moment may be different than how you feel tomorrow, a month, or a year from now. But facts, those never change. And if you ground your argument in facts, well, then your opinion will never be wrong. So the point of all this is that if you want your argument to land harder than that dodgeball did in gym class, you may want to start thinking about using facts over feelings. Now look, I'm just as guilty of doing it as you are. Believe me, when I was younger, I was the king of feelings dictating how I thought the world should operate. Well, I'm going to share a little bit of a story about that, okay? I'm in my 20s, and I'm just learning to navigate life, but not only life for myself. I now have a daughter and a stepson to worry about. I essentially have a ready-made family that I now need to figure out the world, and I was an emotional wreck, to say the least. And I often found myself in conversations with myself saying, "Why does it have to be this way? Why is life this way? This isn't fair. This isn't fair. It shouldn't be like this." And I was bashing my head up against the wall, throwing my emotions at it, thinking that if I just complained loud enough, long enough, and hard enough, that the universe would bend to my will and everything would go my way. Spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. Does any of this sound vaguely familiar to you? Like perhaps you did, or if you're in your 20s now, are currently doing the same thing? All right, so fast forward a little bit in this story, and I'm just venting to a buddy of mine on the phone, and he suggests we meet up for drinks. So we go to a local Chili's that we both live relatively near to, and we start having these drinks called Liquid Valium. And what it is, it's a shot of Crown Royal with a shot of amaretto shaken over ice and poured into a shot glass. Well, it's a little bit bigger than a shot, so you need to have it in a glass. Anyway, they're very smooth, and they're very good, and they hit like a ton of bricks. And after a couple of these, we started having some of those deep and meaningful conversations you have as alcohol tends to bring out in you. And I was complaining about the universe and how it was unfair and life shouldn't be that way. And just really, really being an idiot, just bitching and moaning, right? I was just being a big baby. And he called me out on it. He said, "Yeah, but it isn't that way. So the question is, what are you going to do about it?" And he wasn't being mean or anything like that. He was snapping me back into reality, which I desperately needed a reality check at that moment. And that moment stuck with me because it was the first time where somebody who was my equal said, yeah, but life isn't that way. So what are you actually going to do about it? And it forced me to actually look at the problem at hand. And the problem at hand at that point in time was that rent was coming due. I had little to no money in my checking account. Payday was at least a week away. And what was I going to do? I was frustrated that even though I was busting my butt at my job and doing everything right according to society, I wasn't able to provide basic needs for my family. And instead of shouting at why isn't it working? Why isn't the universe doing what it's supposed to be doing? I'm doing what I'm doing, and holding up my end of the bargain. He forced me to actually look at the problem. Okay, this is the situation. This is what needs to happen. How are you going to solve this problem? So instead of me raging about how I thought things should be, I started focusing on what is and what can I do with that. And let me tell you, when I had that mind shift, that's where I actually started making decisions that worked. So why does all this matter? Well, it's because I want you to start thinking about facts as gravity. It just is. It's true. And when you start basing your decisions and your actions on the truth and of what reality really is, you're making those decisions on a very solid foundation, which is going to be much, much more stable and better for you in the long run than basing decisions on emotions, which can change like the weather. And don't get me wrong, emotions, just like the weather, can be very powerful. They can be very destructive, but they also change over time. The weather, how it is now, is going to be different than how it is an hour from now or tomorrow or next week. So the dynamic of it constantly changing leaves you in a state of instability, and it just makes everything that much worse. So focus on making your decisions on that solid foundation of the truth, and you'll be much happier. Now, I know a lot of the younger generations, Millennial and Gen Z, like to focus on, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to question their intentions or their motives or their humanity. And so they try not to do anything at all offensive. And if they think or feel that what their decision should be maybe possibly isn't beneficial for everybody or may hurt somebody else's feelings because they're focusing on themselves, well, then they won't do that. And they'll refrain from doing that because they want everyone to be happy and they don't want to offend anybody with the decisions they're making. And that's great. Who doesn't want to live in a world full of rainbows and unicorns where pots of gold are around every corner? The world doesn't work that way. And the problem with making decisions based off of how other people may interpret you leaves you exposed to, unfortunately, get played. All right, so let me break it down for you Gen X style, okay? We grew up pretty much left to our own devices, latchkey legends, right? And that required us to really focus on ourselves and to make sure that at the end of the day, we were taken care of. Be kind, sure, but don't be a doormat either. If you didn't stand up for yourself, your values, your beliefs, your stuff, then that leaves you open for other people to come along and take it. Not because they're evil or innately bad people, just because that's how the world works. Everybody is out there looking out for themselves, and you should be too. The facts of the world and reality don't bend just because you're loving and accepting or choose to be that way. And like I said before, I get it. I can empathize with you. I understand not wanting to make a decision that negatively impacts somebody else or seems like you don't care about somebody else's situation. Nobody wants to be the bad guy, But refusing to define where you stand doesn't make you noble. It makes you vulnerable. If you don't know your own lines, how do you know when somebody's crossing them? This isn't about being selfish or being cold. Again, it's about survival. Think about it this way. You ever been on an airplane and you know how they always give you that, notice the exit speech and things like that, but then they always come to that one section where they say, if the cabin loses pressure, then the oxygen masks will deploy. And they always tell you to put your oxygen mask on first before assisting anybody else, even children. And a lot of people think, oh my God, that's just horrible. Of course you have to focus on the women and children first. Well, as a man, I'm not going to be any good to my wife and children if I'm blacked out because I didn't put my oxygen mask on first. There's a reason why you do that, right? It's not because they're being cruel or you're being selfish. It's because you're no good to anybody if you don't take care of yourself first. You can't help anybody if you are injured to the point where you're worthless. And that goes for way more than just oxygen masks in an airplane. That goes for life as well. If you're making choices that leave you vulnerable, exposed, or financially damaged, you can't help those people who are depending on you. Just the same way I wasn't helping my wife and daughter and stepson all those years ago when I was just shouting to the universe, "You're not fair." So here's my challenge to you. Over the next week, next 7 days, I want you, anytime you feel yourself starting to say those words, I feel like, I want you to pause. Give yourself a moment, take a breath, and instead think about the situation and reformulate what you were going to say with, I think that, and then go from there. Ask yourself the question, what do I know? And it's not about shutting down your emotions. It's about not letting your emotions drive the bus. So like I said, try it for a week. Start with I think instead of I feel. Go out there and see what the reality of the situation is and make your decisions based off of the truth and that foundation. I think you're going to be really surprised at how much clearer things seem to be. And also, don't forget, it's okay to put yourself first. Don't forget about the oxygen mask rule. It's not selfish to put yourself first and make sure that you are okay before turning and helping others. It's not selfish, it's smart. If anything I said in this video makes sense to you, then I hope you consider smashing the like button and subscribing to the channel so that way you can watch more videos like this and support the channel and help me grow this thing. And as always, I will see you in the comment section. You know I'll be there. It's really what triggered this video in the first place.